This is ContraZoom, where we go back and forth about film. I'm your host, Dakota Arsenault. Earlier this year, we celebrated the birth of the James Bond movie franchise on episode 236, Dr. No at 60 Years. The first Bond film came out in 1963, and Matthew Simpson joined me to review the film and share our thoughts on the franchise as a whole. I plan to spend the rest of this year watching all 25 official Eon James Bond films. In 2023, I thought it was only fitting to have another games episode after the success of last year's Letterboxd game, where Rachel quizzed Matthew and I. Knowing that Matthew is a Bond fanatic, it was only right to have him back alongside his Awesome Friday co-host, Simon Best, to do a James Bond draft. So welcome, Matthew and Simon.
Hello. Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm very excited. This is something, I was talking about this a little bit before we started recording, where I mentioned this idea to Matthew a while back, and then I was trying to figure out how to find a third person to rope into this. I was like, hey, do you know another Bond fan? And he's like, yes, Simon. Simon is a big Bond fan. You should definitely have him on this show.
Yes. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. I watched a lot of Bond movies. As I was telling you just before we started recording, it always seemed to be the thing that was on Sunday afternoon on TV. So I've got many happy Sunday afternoon memories of just basically lying there doing nothing and watching Bond movies.
Amazing. Yeah, that's the way to watch. That's the way to do it.
So, heard me right, we are doing a James Bond draft. I picked 10 categories where we have to select an actor that played the character or other details to create our ultimate Bond film. The categories are James Bond, M, Q, Moneypenny, Felix Leiter, a good Bond girl, a bad Bond girl, a villain or henchman, location, and most importantly, theme song. Because that is the most important aspect, is you need to have a theme song to tie it all together. Now, we will randomly decide who goes first in a moment, but it will be a snake draft that once an option is chosen, for example, Sean Connery for Bond or Diamonds Are Forever as the theme song, it is off the board for everyone else. You may only choose one option per category, but you can pick any category at any given time to make a selection from. As mentioned earlier, only the 25 main Eon Bond films count. So no Never Say Never Again, no 1967 Casino Royale, or any other spoof or appearance by the James Bond character counts. Afterwards, dear listeners, you will pick who has the best fantasy movie. Lastly, if you listen to the show on Spotify or YouTube, you will be able to watch us, as this is also a video podcast this week. So before we begin, briefly, I just want to get your Bond guide and inquire if you've seen all 25 films. Oh, let's start with you, Matthew.
So first off, I'd just like to say I don't know if I'd qualify myself as a Bond fanatic. I would prefer to think of myself as an enthusiast. But yes, I've seen all the Bond films and all the non-licensed ones, and I've seen all of them recently, except for the third and fourth Pierce Brosnan ones. I've seen all of them in the last, say, 2 years. I've rewatched at least once, except for those two.
And what about you, Simon?
Yeah, I've seen them all a number of times for most of them. I grew up in the sort of the Roger Moore Bond, so I had to learn that Sean Connery was a different Bond, and then I've really enjoyed watching sort of Bond change as what's popular in that kind of genre influences it over different Bonds as well. So yeah, I've seen them all a number of times. I haven't seen the Peter Sellers spin-off, but we're not talking about it, so that's fine. I've seen all the main ones.
Does not count. Yeah, so like I said, I spent all this year watching them all. I had seen a few of them before, but not a good chunk of them. And yeah, it's really fascinating to just watch the evolution of action movies by watching the Bond franchise as a whole, because it really is almost like an anthropological study of how action cinema has evolved from the 60s up until now, just by charting this one franchise, because it's covered it all.
It's very reactive as well. It's often reacting to things in the pop culture. There's a reason Moonraker's in space. There's a reason the Daniel Craig ones are very interconnected, like the Marvel franchise. They're very attuned to what's popular at the time. So it's an interesting expedition to watch them that way too.
There's a reason why the Timothy Dalton ones seem like they're soaked in cocaine.
Yeah. Don't be ridiculous. You dust things in cocaine. You don't soak them in it.
You're right. My apologies. All right. So we are going to do a live not draft, but figure out how to select who goes first. We all have decks of cards in front of us. Let's just, in front of our cameras, give it a little bit of a shuffle. And then on the count of three, we'll the deck and see who has the highest cards to go first. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, so it is Simon. Oh, sorry, it is Matthew, then myself, then Simon.
I'm last. Okay.
That's okay, though. You get to go twice in a row at one point. So,
Oh, do I? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Mhm. All right, so
Good.
Matthew, you are now on the clock. Let us know what category you're picking from and what your pick is going to be.
well, let's get the big one out of the way. I want to choose my James Bond.
Do it.
Awesome. I want Roger Moore. Roger Moore is the James Bond that I grew up with. We had a 10-foot satellite dish and gray market American TV, and I watched Roger Moore on TBS most of the time when I was a kid in the 90s. So he's my James Bond, specifically from his third outing to his last. I don't particularly like his first two, but his third through seventh appearances, that's my James Bond.
That's really fascinating because it's my pick now. So I'm going to use my time right now to sort of be like, when I was trying to figure out what order I want to draft in, one of the things was I could probably put some of my categories lower down because I know the two of you might not go after it. And one of them is going to be Roger Moore, where I don't think Simon and I would even, I'm not going to put too many words in your mouth there, Simon. Probably not as high on our list. And that probably would have been available near the end.
I just want to get it out of the way. I think it's a good one to go first. It is the main category, if you ask me.
That is fair. Okay, so for my category, I'm going to go with a good Bond girl, and I am actually going to go maybe off the board, but we'll see how much this upsets Simon. And that is Pam Bouvier, who is played by Carrie Lowell from License to Kill. She basically plays, if I'm remembering correctly, an FBI agent or something like that, who ends up teaming up with James Bond, and she just had to be one of the most competent female characters in the entire franchise, and I really appreciated what her character brought.
I can't refute any of that. It's a good choice.
It's a good choice. That's a really good choice.
Excellent. Simon, you have back-to-back picks now.
Okay, I'm back to back. Well, I'm going to go straight for the jugular and go for theme song because I want the best Bond theme song, which really, for me, is the one I like to sing most at karaoke. You don't want to hear that, but it's "The Spy Who Loved Me" is the best Bond theme, and I think a lot. I think a lot about Bond themes, like what makes a good Bond theme. Every time a Bond theme comes out, I break it down in my musical head and I think about the motifs and the certain chords, and The Spy Who Loved Me is that perfect mix of like beautiful female voice talking about this mysterious, like charming spy, and it's got all the swells and everything. It's just a beautiful song, sung beautifully as well.
All right, what is your next pick then?
I would like to go for Bad Bond Girl. You chose good Bond Girl, didn't you?
I did, yes.
I'm afraid, as much as I love my other two picks, you know it's got to be Famke Janssen.
You son of a bitch! You son of a bitch!
I got to take Famke Janssen, as I don't think in the entire franchise you're going to find a better foil for Bond, who kills with her thighs at the peak of like pleasure. It's just the perfect anti-Bond in every single way. And Famke Janssen is one of the most beautiful people on the planet in that movie. And she's brilliant in it as well. It's not that surface level kind of characterization that we see in many other earlier Bonds. So Famke Janssen is my bad Bond girl, and I apologize.
She steals the helicopter.
Did you miss the part where she kills with her thighs? Just...
Yeah, that's the part.
All right, so it's my turn again. I want to go villain henchman, and I can't decide which one to go for. I've got two basically that are neck and neck. You know what? I'm gonna go with it. Francisco Scaramanga from The Man with the Golden Gun, played by Christopher Lee.
So good. So good.
Probably
So
one of
good.
the strongest, most unique villains because of how playful he is, but also at the same time he is very intimidating. It's Christopher Lee. Like, what else can you really say about that? He's got his own island with an amusement park full of booby traps set up. That's all you want from a villain, right?
But yeah, I mean, again, can't fault. There's no bad choices in this category as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah.
All right,
That's
Matthew.
Christopher Lee.
Yes, you've got back-to-back picks now, Matthew. Your turn.
Okay, well, since Simon already sharked my choice for Bad Bond Girl, I'm just going to grab my second choice for Bad Bond Girl, and that is Mayday, played by Grace Jones in A View to a Kill. Because I don't know, man. Grace Jones. When I was a kid, I saw that movie when I was maybe like, it came out in like 85, so I probably saw it in like 88, 89, 90. And that movie, she awakened something in me, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Where do I want to go next? Okay, I'm gonna go to, I think, what might be a difficult category, and I'm gonna snag my Moneypenny.
Ooh.
And I'm gonna now. This is either gonna be the worst choice for you two or the best choice for you two. I'm not sure which, but I'm gonna go with the original. I'm gonna go with Lois Maxwell.
Of course, absolutely. Thanks for that.
All right. Well, I'm just going to recap your two picks there. I am very mad. Those were both my number one picks for money. I'm very mad at how this is turning out for me. Like, there's,
I mean, don't hate the player, hate the game. You know, it's.
Yeah. I have it organized of what order I want to pick each category, and the fact that now the two of you have picked the Bad Bond Girl, I can basically now do that at the very end because it doesn't matter, because neither of you can snipe another pick from me. But I'm very mad. So you know what? I'm gonna go before something ridiculous happens. I'm gonna go for my Felix Leiter pick. And I'm gonna have to go with the man who has played him the most times, and that is Jeffrey Wright. Honestly, the fact that he's played it the most helps a lot. He also is given the most screen time and backstory compared to just about any other Bond. I think there's 7 different actors who've played him, which is insane. I have a really strong number 2, and I'm curious to see if one of you will pick it. But yeah, Jeffrey Wright, I feel I cannot go wrong with that pick. I can't go wrong.
No, you can't. You really can't.
Thank you. Simon, we're back to you.
Okay.
2 picks in a row.
Okay, well, I looking at my categories, there's some I feel very, very strongly about, so I'm going to go for this one. And for my cue, it has to be Desmond Llewellyn for me.
Obviously.
Every time I watch a Bond movie that has a cue that isn't him, it feels just a bit wrong. As much as I love Ben Whishaw and John Cleese, it doesn't feel right that it's not him. And it's a really difficult balance to kind of be comedic but straight-faced at the same time. He was so good at that. So he's my cue choice.
Nice. What's your next one?
I'm twice again. Okay, good. I would like to choose. Let's see. I'm going to go good Bond girl. I thought a lot. This was the hardest category for me, and I went through every single Bond girl, and I'm going to go with Jane Seymour, who played Solitaire in Live and Let Die, because I just love that character. I just love Jane Seymour. You talk about Grace Jones awakening things in you. Let me tell you, my God, that woman. But it's such an interesting character as well. And it's not a superficially written female character. She's got things to do. She's got a reason to be there. And I just love her characterization in that movie too.
Yeah, that's a really strong pick. She was my runner-up too for that category. I was very enamored with her performance as well. But it's back to my turn, and I guess before anything very bad happens with my Q pick. I really only like 2 of the Q actors, and that's Desmond Llewellyn and Ben Whishaw. I would have been very nonplussed if I had to pick either John Cleese or Peter Burton. Either of them, I think, had strong outings as the Q character.
Yeah, I mean, that leaves me with the easy choice to leave for the end, but this is where I say that I think John Cleese had one good outing, and that was before he was named Q.
Yeah, that's
like
fair.
Yeah. So is it me? It's me twice in a row now, right?
It is.
All right. Well, then I'm going to snag my good Bond girl, and that is the Contessa Teresa de Vincenzo, played by Diana Rigg, Tracy Bond, the best and his first equal from On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Interesting. I was sure you were going to go for Eva Green.
She's on my list. She's on my list. I actually very nearly decided to try and cheat, and because Naomi Harris is actually my number 3 pick in this category. Because technically speaking, before she's revealed to be Moneypenny, she's a Bond girl. So that was my small bit of gamesmanship. But no, I'm taking Tracy Bond because she's the best. She's by far the best in one of the best Bond movies. There, I said it. You can, yeah. Right, still me, right? So
yeah.
Don't need to pick John Cleese just now, so I guess I'm going to jump over to... I'm actually going to jump over to my M pick. And maybe this is controversial. Maybe this is not the choice you might guess, but I'm going to pick Bernard Lee, who's the original and the longest serving M.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I think it only would have been controversial if you had picked Robert Brown.
Yeah, probably, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, he does a good job as being a bit of a foil for Bond in terms of trying to keep him serious, especially during the Roger Moore years of eye rolling at all of his one-liners. But definitely a solid pick nonetheless.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was my pick.
Okay, you know what? I think I'm going to go for theme song, and maybe you're gonna start to notice a trend for me of maybe liking some of the newer Bonds, and that's because that's when I truly start to appreciate the franchise. But my theme song is "You Know My Name" by Chris Cornell.
It's a great song. That was my number 1 pick as well.
Ooh, sorry.
Oh, really? Interesting.
You're not sorry. Don't apologize to me. I don't want your pity.
All right, Simon, what about you? You've got now back-to-back picks. Where are you going to go?
Okay. Sorry, I'm still thinking about your theme pick. It's a great song. And I'm not sure there's a better song for a car skidding sideways in slow motion. Like, give me a supercar. My Bond is Timothy Dalton.
Yours?
My favorite
Your Bond
is Timothy Dalton. I thought I'd just go for it now, just to surprise everyone.
What a curveball, sir!
I know. Do I need to? Where shall I start? How long? Timothy Dalton. They did the thing they did with Daniel Craig, but too early. Like, people were not ready for the most handsome man in the world to be book Bond, like as Fleming wrote Bond, to be basically a contract killer who's really good with the ladies. And one of my favorite moments in the entire Bond franchise is when Timothy Dalton says, "I probably scared the living daylights out of her." And cut to theme. Boom, 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 boom. Like, oh my god, he is just so good at being dark and handsome, and Bond is meant to be a barely contained brawler who looks good in a suit, and he's just that. He is perfect Bond for me. I have 2 choices. Sorry, I'll write that. So I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with my location. I think no, I'm not. I'm gonna go villain henchman. Sorry, I would like to snag Donald Pleasance as Blofeld in all of the Donald Pleasance Blofeld movies.
There's only one. but he's the best. So
well, he's in very briefly. He's in For Your Eyes Only before he gets dropped down a chimney. But the problem with Donald Pleasant's Blofeld now is that Austin Powers exists, so there'd be no way to do it now. But I just I love his Blofeld so much, so I will take him.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this about your picks. I briefly considered sniping Timothy Dalton from you very early on. I knew that was your pick. You are absolutely right that the world was not ready for Dalton as Bond, and we wouldn't have Daniel Craig's version if it wasn't for Timothy Dalton's, because they very clearly are playing the same type of character. And then on your selection of Donald Pleasance, that was what I was trying to decide between Christopher Lee or Donald Pleasance, where it's almost a shame that now Blofeld is a caricature of a joke of a character because of what happened with Dr. Evil. And as we saw with Christoph Waltz playing him, you can't really do the Blofeld character anymore.
No.
Well, that doesn't help that Christoph Waltz version wasn't very well written to begin with.
Yeah,
or make him his like Bond's half brother or something.
Yeah.
Again, the Marvel of it all. Yeah. So stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's my turn again. I'm gonna go location. I'm gonna be the first person to steal a location off the map. Quite literally, I am going to go with Jamaica, which appeared in Dr. No, Live and Let Die, and No Time to Die. I think it is a perfect location. If I'm not mistaken, that Ian Fleming actually wrote a lot of the James Bond novels in Jamaica, and it's just a beautiful.
And it's actually the reason it's in No Time to Die is because in the books it's James Bond's home as well. Like he lives there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Jerk. That was my pick.
Sorry, Matthew. I know. I feel it's funny. I wasn't too sure where the two of you would stand. It seems like you and I have more overlap with what we consider iconic Bond aspects. So it's very interesting to see this.
Seems like it. Right, is it me? It's me again, right?
Yes.
Do I have one or two in a row right now?
Two. You and Simon will always have back-to-back picks.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
In that case, I'm going to snag my location, which is my backup location. As far as I remember, it only appears in one film, and that is Quantum of Solace, and that is Haiti. Sweaty, dirty Haiti, which is, I think, mainly because I think that's where Bond movies, like, I think that's my iconic, like, when I think about Bond, I think of him, like, in a loose shirt in a super hot Caribbean country. So if I can't have Jamaica, I'm going to take Haiti.
Nice. All right. What's your second pick then?
That's so tough. You guys have already both picked villains, so I have some leeway there. Simon hasn't picked a lighter yet. I think the only one that you guys haven't either picked is Simon hasn't picked a Felix Leiter, right?
That's correct.
No.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to pick mine, and that's going to be the OG Jack Lord.
Excellent.
And interestingly, because he's good in James Bond, but also when I was a kid, I watched Hawaii Five-0 on reruns like endlessly, and he's always been like one of the sort of like epitomes of cool to me. So he's a special place in my heart.
My favorite piece of trivia about Jack Lord's performance in Dr. No was that he was so cool that Sean Connery didn't like it, and so they didn't include the Felix Leiter character anymore for like several movies. Like he's cool. They proceeded to only have like
it sounds like Connery.
Fat bald men or like guys who are clearly way past their prime as the Felix Leiter for a very long period of time.
Yep. Yeah, that's accurate.
All right. So I guess it is my turn again to pick. Do I want to go James Bond, Moneypenny, Bad Bond Girl? You know, I'll do Bad Bond Girl, and I'm very curious to see your reactions to this pick. And that is Miranda Frost from Die Another Day, played by Rosamund Pike.
Yeah.
Oh, that was close on my list. Yeah. So criminally underused in that movie. But
But
yeah, she's great.
I still really liked her arc because we spend a good chunk of the movie where she's supposed to be an ally, and it's even revealed that she's, I think, a CIA plant, and then we find out double agent, and she betrays Bond after they sleep together, and she removes his clip from his gun. What a great turnaround from her, and it's Rosamund Pike, who's just a phenomenal actress as well.
Yeah.
She's fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
agree.
I'm so worried that the two of you would skewer that pick.
No, honestly,
no, she almost made it on my list.
It's interesting because she's kind of like, I don't want to say a nothing character. She has a lot going on, but she's not in a very good movie. But it's interesting to me that, like, I'd be willing to bet all three of us would pick her over Halle Berry, which, when you say that out loud, sounds insane. But she is so good and honestly so much more memorable.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go with location. And because I have to choose like a country, I'm going to choose Italy. But specifically, there's a place called, you might have to help me with this, Cortina di Ampezzo. Basically, in, Cortina di Ampezzo. In, which movie is it where they ski down the mountain? I've gone completely blank. It's basically any time James Bond skis down a mountain and is chased by other men on skis with machine guns. And
it's a number of Roger Moore performances there. Yeah.
In For Your Eyes Only, there's a 20-minute chase down. That whole movie is just like a Bond supercut, but there's a 20-minute ski chase of people on bikes and then cars and then jet skis, and then sort of he ends on like a high jump and then skis a little bit more because the sniper misses him. And I just love James Bond skiing away from trouble. So you could, because I have to choose one place where he does that, I'm going to choose the Italian, I guess it's the Alps, a big mountain.
All right. What's your next pick?
My next pick is, I'm going to go and get my M out of the way. I wanted Bernard Lee, but I really, really just generally love Judi Dench as an actor as well. And I think as much as I love exactly what you were saying about Bernard Lee, the foil to Roger Moore, I love Judi Dench's kind of stern heart that she's got with all of her Bonds as well.
Yep.
And she's done so many of them as well. And I love her in that role. I mean, she could do anything, so she's my M.
Yeah, I believe Italy has the distinction of being one of the top 3 most visited countries in the franchise. I think on my count, it appears in 7 different films. And you basically have 2 options, I feel like, when you're looking at picking a location for a Bond film. You either have the super hot Caribbean beach set location, or you have the ski location. It's one or the other you want to go for.
Yes.
Very occasionally you get a middle ground because he goes to Venice. He's on a canal boat for like 10 seconds. It's
okay, cool. Those are, and Judi Dench is a phenomenal pick, and was my number 1 M pick for that. So I'm debating whether or not, what do I have left? I've got M, my Bond, and my Money Penny, which you all have both picked. So I'm wondering if I should just keep the suspense for James Bond last. I might do that.
Please be Lazenby. It's got to be Lazenby at this point.
I'm
right?
gonna pick my. Shoot. Yeah, I guess I'll go with my Money Penny, and I'm very sorry, Matthew. I got to go Naomi Harris, because unfortunately, I feel like the other 2 just are not as strong. Samantha Bond was in 4 of them, and Caroline Bliss was in 2 of them, and neither of them really did a lot, which is sort of a writer's issue more so than the actor's issue. But yeah,
no,
Naomi
I agree.
Harris, yeah,
I mean, I like Samantha Bond a lot, actually. Like, the Pierce Brosnan Bonds were the ones that were in cinemas when I was a teenager during my formative years. So I have a special place in my heart for her, but she was 3rd on my list. Naomi Harris was 2nd.
Okay, so now is back to your back-to-back picks there, Matthew.
So I think all the categories I have left, which would be Q, villain, and theme, you guys have both picked both of them already, so I can just sort of go hog wild. So I am going to go for my theme, I guess. Actually, let's just get the Q out of the way because that is the least interesting of the three. So John Cleese is my Q, which is fine. He's not terrible. It's just not Desmond Llewellyn. And I'm gonna pick. Should I pick my villain or my theme song last? Do you think? What do you think? What's going to be good for your numbers? What do you think is going to do? What do you think is the most suspense?
I say do theme song last.
Theme song last. Okay. So someone's already taken my number one choice for a villain by taking Donald Pleasance. So I'm going to choose. Sorry, I need to flip a coin. Sorry. Hang on. Okay. I'm going to go with Alec Trevelyan from GoldenEye, who I think is one of the more solid villains. I think Sean Bean does a really good job in the role, and I think it's actually really interesting that he's like a mirror image, like a dark mirror image of James Bond. I feel weird about the choice because I really wanted to go a little weirder with it, but yeah, Trevelyan is I think the best choice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very, very strong pick too. Okay. I guess I've got two categories left. I've got my James Bond and I got my M. And I'll go with my M character. You both pick Bernard Lee and Judi Dench. I am not picking Robert Brown. So on down. I still really liked his performance. It's really tough shoes to fill with Judi Dench, and I think he does a great job of being suspicious of Bond and bringing that sort of new angle to a character of like, hey, James, you need to win me over. So I like that aspect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that he has a bit of a backstory as well, in that he's around and before he's promoted within one of the films. I think it's an interesting choice rather than just slotting someone in.
Yeah. And we know that he's ex-military, I believe, or something like that. So we at least understand that he knows the dangers that Bond and other agents have to face as well.
Yep. Yep. All true. Right.
Yeah. Simon, you've got your last two picks. What are you going for?
So I've got Moneypenny and Felix Leiter left. And I think just like with the M role, anyone trying to follow Lewis Maxwell it's almost an impossible task after 14 movies. But I'm going to choose Samantha Bond because you're right, she was underwritten, but I really like her performance. I prefer her out of the non-Maxwell Moneypennies. She's actually my favorite. And she's kind of got that flirtatious foil thing that I think is quite important to the character, which I like a lot.
I know.
And that
I know you're not too fond of Pierce Brosnan in general, but I think she had really good chemistry with him in particular as well.
Yeah, she's great. And that leaves my final choice, I believe, of Felix Leiter. And my number one choice was David Hedison. I like a Felix who's kind of Jeffrey Wright is great, but they made him part of the mystery box, and I like Felix who's just kind of bemused from the outside about what James Bond is doing, and you get the impression that Felix could have his own movie adventure, and they just meet up in a bar and he passes over a file and they have a bit of banter, and that's what Felix should be to me. And David Hedison was so good at that. So
that's a great choice. And to sort of go back to my surprise of the Timothy Dalton films and how much I enjoyed them, they definitely feel the least Bond-like out of the entire franchise, where you really could feel, you could imagine how at the time, if they want to, they could have done entire spin-offs of whether it was the Pam Bouvier character or on the Felix Leiter character. And you could totally see like, oh, what's the American version of MI6 doing at the same time that Timothy Dalton is off doing his thing?
Yeah, absolutely. They were just too early.
All right. So the time has come for me to reveal my Bond pick. And, it's funny. I haven't quite decided yet. I still have both my number one and my number two option available to me. Neither of you picked them. But I think I'm going to go for the clicks and pick Lazenby.
Nice.
I absolutely adore On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I cannot. Yes, it
What,
blew
really?
me away. It is a top
Oh,
three
cool.
Bond film for me. It was incredible, and just as Timothy Dalton was ahead of his time, I think George Lazenby was also ahead of his time. And Dalton works because Lazenby did similar things to what he did, as well as being more of a brute. And so the three of Lazenby, Dalton, and Craig are their own three Bonds. And I think Connery, Moore, and Brosnan represents the other side of Bond.
That's awesome.
I mean,
that's really good.
He was my number 2, to be totally honest. I love that movie like so much. Really? It's such a weird departure from all the ones that came before it, and you can the one that came right after it, Diamonds Are Forever, is such an overcorrection in the other way. But it's the first one that really gives him. He's the first actor who has a version of the character that's really well written, like really well rounded, in a way that I really like. And I just like that Lazenby's very, very much not trying to be Sean Connery as well, which I think the problem I have with the first 2 Roger Moore movies, that he's very much trying to be Sean Connery. And until he sort of comes into his own and realizes what his own Bond is going to be, that's when those movies get good. So yeah, Lazenby's a great choice. Fully support it.
Amazing. All right, Matthew,
Nice.
You've left us in suspense. What is your theme song?
This is such a hard one. Remind me what you guys picked. You chose You Know My Name, Dakota, and you chose The Spy Who Loved Me. So that leaves me with 20, I think it's 21 good options, I think. And not because there's bad. I mean, to be fair, Dr. No doesn't have a song, so and technically, I think From Russia with Love doesn't really have a theme song, does it? It just has a theme, like a score.
Yes.
From Russia with Love has a song.
Does it?
Don't make me sing it. Don't make me do it. Your viewers don't want that. You can search it up on your music sub of choice.
You know what? I think. Sorry, I'm gonna hum and haw because I'm trying really hard to choose between 2 films here. And
do you need to flip a coin again?
I think I might, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
Nah, screw it. I'm gonna go with the legend herself and go with Goldeneye by Tina Turner. Don't be wrong, I love Shirley Bassey, but I mean, Goldeneye is an absolute banger of a song outside of it being a Bond song. So that's my choice. All
right. Well, those were our 10 draft picks. I'm going to ask us each to sort of reiterate our picks and maybe try to give us your best pitch with what you've got going at it. I guess to make it a little bit easier, I'll go first, so that way the 2 of you can sort of follow my lead. But basically, my James Bond is played by George Lazenby. The movie's going to take place over in Jamaica, and then his boss as M is going to be Ray Fiennes. His money penny is Naomi Harris. His Q is Ben Whishaw. His Felix Leiter is Jeffrey Wright. And then you've got the good bad girl of Pam Bouvier, who is played by Carrie Lowell. And then you've got the bad Bond girl is Miranda Frost, played by Rosamund Pike. And what am I missing? Oh, yes. The villain is going to be Francisco Scaramanga, who's played by Christopher Lee. And then the theme song, which obviously I don't know what this movie is going to be called, but the theme song is somehow You Know My Name. So I'd love to get the 2 of your reaction. What do you think of my film? How does it stand up?
I think it's great.
I would watch the hell out of that movie. That's like, I just really like the idea of Lazenby and Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see that. I want to see those 2. And yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, Matthew, sell us your Bond movie.
All right, so my James Bond movies starring the laissez-faire billionaire bored guy himself, Roger Moore, answering to his M, Bernard Lee, and his Q is John Cleese. His money penny is Lois Maxwell, the classic, and his Felix Leiter is Jack Lord, the coolest man on the planet. His good Bond girl is his one and only equal in Tracy Bond, and his bad Bond girl is Mayday, the strongest of the bad girls. His villain is his other half, Alec Trevelyan. This movie takes place in Haiti, and the theme song, somehow, is GoldenEye.
I think it's interesting. You've got a lot of, a lot of oil and water elements going together in your Bond movie. I'd be very curious where you tell me all these things. I'm like, that movie is either going to be absolutely amazing or it's going to be a failure. And I don't think there's anywhere in between that it could land. So I would be
it's going to be bonkers no matter what. And that's what I'm shooting for.
I mean, the Roger Moore Grace Jones combo that you have there is tried and tested, and I think works really, really well. And then you've got John.
I think it's interesting because I think John Cleese would be a really good foil for, like, the really hyper sarcastic version of John Cleese would be a really good foil for Roger Moore. And we do know that Bernard Lee is already really good at being like, oh, for Christ's sake, at Roger Moore. So, what's interesting,
patch from his retina is rolling so hard.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the weirdest choice in mine is that I think the only one that doesn't really fit is the villain. I think Trevelyan is a little too modern, a little bit too not silly for my movie, if that makes sense.
Fair enough. Okay, Simon.
I do like my Bond movies silly.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm very excited, even just thinking about my Bond movie. So my Bond movie I'm very excited about this, has Timothy Dalton front and center, just looking handsome from every angle. And his M is Judi Dench, which I think is a great combination. And he's got Desmond Llewellyn as Q, giving him all his gadgets, and Samantha Bond as his money penny. Which is a great combo. His Felix Leiter is David Hedison, and then his Bond girl is Jane Seymour. And just thinking about Timothy Dalton and Jane Seymour, it gives me warm feelings. But his then bad Bond girl is Famke Janssen, and the villain is Donald Pleasance playing Blofeld in Italy. And the theme tune is The Spy Who Loved Me. This might be my favorite movie ever. Can someone make this, please? Like, I'm generally against AI in content creation, but can someone just AI this? That would be awesome.
A few really interesting components. I think the Judi Dench, the Donald Pleasance, and the Timothy Dalton, the three of them together is such an interesting combination that I don't know how it works, but I love it.
It's gonna form a singularity and like just destroy the Bond universe from the inside out in the best way possible.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
What a film.
Can you imagine Donald Pleasance in a Timothy Dalton Bond film? Because I think that would be absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Honestly, yes. But also going back to what Simon said, like, I have a hard time imagining Donald Pleasance without just defaulting over to Dr. Evil. Which is kind of a problem because I do think he's legitimately the best Blofeld. But it is hard to, like, even the last time I watched that movie, I was like, this is difficult to watch because it's been so lampooned now. Yeah. I have a question I'd like to ask, if I may.
Go ahead.
What would you consider, just in whatever category you want? I would just like to hear what you guys think your most out there picks are. The ones you think we would never have guessed. Like, not necessarily number ones, but like who's the wild card on your list? And I'll tell you what mine is first. I was this close to picking Drax as my villain from Moonraker, because he has what I consider to be the single best villain line in the franchise, which is it's the moment when James Bond is like infiltrated his thinking he's being all suave, is infiltrated Drax's like inner circle, but Drax is smarter than that, and he goes to his henchman and says, take care, Mr. Bond, see that some harm comes to him.
I love Moonraker. Moonraker is such a funny movie and is so unlike any
Yeah.
other Bond. My kids love Moonraker because it is basically space Bond. One of my locations is legitimately space.
That could
But I
have been
didn't
a
choose it.
selection. Someone could have
Didn't
picked
choose it.
space.
I honestly, I wish you had. I
Yes,
legitimately
I
wish you
almost
had.
Yeah, that's one of my curveballs. To answer your question, I had a minor villain curveball, villain henchman in Charles Dance. His first movie role was as
Oh.
a hoodlum in For Your Eyes Only, and I think he would make a great like Bond villain as well. But he's got no lines. He just stands there beating people up. But my bad Bond girl, big twist is Caroline Munro, who plays Naomi in The Spy Who Loved Me. Who turns up in a bikini? He's like, "Oh, Mr. Bond," and Roger Moore says, "Lovely craft, such fine lines," like pretending he's talking about the boat, and then she tries to kill him in a helicopter while he's escaping in the best Bond car, the Lotus Esprit, and then there's one moment where the helicopter pulls up next to the car, and she looks over, and Roger Moore looks over at her, and she winks, and Roger Moore goes. Like, as she's trying to kill him, I'm not sure you could like boil down Roger Moore. To
No, you really couldn't. This actually begs the question: like, why didn't we choose a Bond car? We should have chosen a car.
Simon brought that up. Yes, the issue is one, I wanted to keep it at a nice round 10, and two, that just seemed like a lot of work on my behalf to track vehicles.
I don't think so, because like Simon, your Bond car is the Lotus Esprit, right?
The Lotus Esprit S1.
Okay, that's actually my number one, so I'll go with the BMW M3 Roadster. And Dakota, what's yours?
Alligator sub.
Nice. Perfect. There. It's easy.
All
right, I'll answer your question for the curveball. There's a couple that basically every one of my number one or number two picks I managed to get, so I'm very happy with all my picks. But some people that I considered, Domino from Thunderball, played by Claudine Auger, and then probably a really big curveball who wasn't really in contention, but I threw him on my short list, was Zhao from Die Another Day. I love the fact that he had like diamonds embedded into his face and that made scars, which was probably one of the coolest looking villains that we have in the Bond franchise. So probably him. If I was to pick a real villain, it would have been Le Chiffre.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I always think that Die Another Day is
excellent.
And it's not good, but it's never as bad as I remember it whenever I do get around to watching it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just fine. It's fine. It's totally fine.
The bad CGI hurts it more than anything else, frankly.
Yeah, the late 90s, early zeros, overuse of CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I wasn't totally sure how this was all going to play out, but I think it worked out incredibly well, and I'm so happy that that you enjoyed it and were just as on game for this as I was.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. I really enjoyed that. What's your favorite? Before we wrap up, Dakota, choose your one, and Matt, choose your one favorite Bond movie from the entire franchise. If you could choose anyone to watch right now, which one would you choose?
Let me just sort this by rating. I'm just looking at my... honestly, if I was going to watch one right now, I would have to flip a coin between On Her Majesty's Secret Service and From Russia with Love. From Russia with Love... Maybe this is controversial, but From Russia with Love, best Connery movie.
Okay.
and mine's Moonraker. There you go. Wrap up with that.
You know what? We do need to wrap up because I'm not letting you explain that pick.
Yep. I'm hungry. I want to eat and watch Moonraker.
We'll wrap up saying this. On last week's show, I had Taylor Baker on, where I used his appearance to announce our new critics group, the Cascadian Film and Television Critics Association, of which, Matthew, you are a co-founder alongside myself, and Simon, you are one of our inaugural members. By the time this episode comes out, you'll be able to see our top 10 films of the year list, where Simon, you wrote about our number 10 film, The Killer. I wrote about our number 6 film, The Zone of Interest, and Matthew wrote about the number 5 film, Barbie. And you can also view all of our nominees for the best Cascadian film, with the winner being announced next week. So I want to first say thank you and congratulations to the both of you for helping get this up and off the ground. And Matthew, I don't know if you have any words you wish to say about the group.
I'm really glad we're doing it, to be totally honest. I think it highlights the region, filmmaking in the region in a really interesting way. And I think it gives a collective voice to a lot of us who are maybe not represented in some of the other critic circles, especially here in Vancouver. And also it's just nice to see. One thing I really like about the group we managed to get together is that we're all really into film in very similar ways. So it leads to very interesting conversation. And I think our top 10 list is great. Like there's a couple weird outliers in it that I never would have expected, but in the best way possible, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm really pleased that we've talked about this for like 18 months. So like, I'm really pleased that it sort of finally came together. Which I think we can thank Thomas for that one. Thank you, Thomas. Cause he was like, why don't you just do it? And we were like, why don't we just do it? So yeah, I think it's an interesting work in progress and one that I'm very pleased to be working on.
Amazing. You can find all the information at cascadiacritics.com or on all social media platforms at Cascadia Critics, which will, of course, be in the show notes. Simon and Matthew, thank you so much for coming on today. I don't know which one of you wishes to promote your own products and highlight anything you're working on. I know, Matthew, you usually do that, and Simon, you just kind of agree with what he says.
Wow. I mean, easy on the compliments now. God. I am the official Awesome Friday Yes Man. Just like the Cascadia group, I'm very grateful to the people doing the actual work so I can be part of the fun side. So yeah.
Right. So you can find us. Simon and I together are the Awesome Friday podcast, which you can find at awesomefriday.ca and on basically all the socials at Awesome Friday CA. If you'd like to find Simon and some of his work, he's got a lot of film writing and some fiction writing and stuff. That's all at temporarypen.com. And if you want to find my work, including the podcast and various film writing for various outlets, you can find that at stretched.ca.
Amazing. All of that will be in the show notes, as always. This has been a That Shelf podcast. Visit thatshelf.com for more great film discourse. Follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at contrazoompod. Who had the best James Bond draft? Send an email to contrazoompod@gmail.com. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, we do post all episodes there as well. And if you really like the show, consider tipping us on coffee. Thanks for checking us out.